Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Welcome to Mental Health and Music with Phoebe Bridgers, presented by MusicCares and GRAMMY U. I'm Erica Cruzen, the Managing Director of Mental Health and Addiction Services for MusicCares. For those of you watching that don't know about MusicCares, we are the charitable arm of the Recording Academy, and we're established in 1989 to safeguard the health and well-being of all music people. We provide a support system of health and human services across a spectrum of needs that includes physical and mental health, addiction recovery, preventative health clinics, emotional support groups, and disaster relief, including our most recent COVID-19 relief funds. Today, we're joined by GRAMMY U, which is a unique and fast-growing community of full-time college students, primarily between the ages of 17 and 25, who are pursuing a career in the recording industry. The Recording Academy created GRAMMY U to help prepare college students for their careers in the music industry through networking, educational programs, and performance opportunities. Together, we are thrilled to bring this program to you as part of Mental Health Awareness Month, where we have committed to bringing programs, resources, action, and awareness about the ongoing need to destigmatize mental health challenges and make sure that people have a place to turn to receive the help they need. Throughout this month, MusicCares has hosted workshops, panels, and events to encourage musicians and those in the industry to prioritize mental health. In our recent Wellness in Music survey, we found that 26% of respondents reported experiencing moderate to severe levels of depression, and 53% of respondents indicated they were unable to receive counseling because they couldn't afford it. As the industry enters a new stage of the COVID-19 pandemic and more people become vaccinated, we at MusicCares are turning our focus to the future, prioritizing self-care and healing after a difficult year. Now, you are all in for a really great program as I get to welcome an amazing singer-songwriter, guitarist, and producer from Los Angeles, California. She made her solo debut with the studio album Stranger in the Alps, followed by Punisher, which earned her widespread critical acclaim and 4 Grammy Award nominations, including Best New Artist. She is also known for her work in the musical groups Boy Genius and Better Oblivion Community Center. I welcome Phoebe Bridgers.
Hello.
It's so great to have you, and thanks for joining us. You've made so many young fans excited to have the opportunity to ask some really great questions today. But I want to first congratulate you on all the success with Punisher and your award nominations. My kids and I love your music. I've been fortunate enough to see you play live to thousands of adoring fans. So I want to say it's an honor to have you here with us today and talk about such an important topic.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, let's get to it. The role of women in the music industry has become an increasingly present topic as women from all walks of life and within all sectors continue to flourish in this male-saturated business. Even in the past decade, there's been a huge shift in how people perceive women in the music industry. What changes have you seen in the industry in regards to women, and anything that you would still like to change?
Yeah, well, for one, I think there's nothing revolutionary about a white woman in like fashion magazines and stuff. And I feel like people like to pat themselves on the back for like representation with like me. And I, as a queer person and as a woman, it's great, but nobody gets to just go home after that. I think there's a lot more representation to be done. And I wish that I saw more representation behind the scenes. Like it's easy enough to shove somebody to the lip of the stage and make them represent this male-dominated industry. But the truth is, when you walk into like a record label, the amount of women of color or people of color or women in general that you see is far, far less than the amount of people you see kind of pushed into a performance role. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel complex about like performative activism because, sometimes it's like, all right, you're trying. But I think more hiring and more, just like more awareness about who actually works on projects would be great. But that being said, it has even changed in the time that I've played music, which is like for the past 10 years. I feel like nobody was even talking about it 10 years ago.
So we're on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For too long, many people have silently battled mental health issues, putting on a happy face for the rest of the world in fear of judgment and misunderstanding, including musicians. But things have been changing. In recent years, various artists have spoken out in the hopes of destigmatizing everything from depression to bipolar disorder and more by opening up about their own struggles. How can we encourage more artists like yourself to speak up about mental health?
Well, I think that it's typically pretty romanticized, mental health issues. Like now it's fashionable to be depressed and bipolar. So I think writing about it in a song will kind of inherently romanticize it. You know, you're setting it to beautiful music and you're dressing cool when you're on stage. And at least when I was a kid, I was like, I want to be exactly like that. So I think it's important to talk about how we're all trying to get better. And that's not the end goal, is having stuff to write about. The end goal is helping yourself and going to therapy and stuff. And I found personally that helps my creative process a lot. Like I was so depressed for so long that I couldn't get out of bed and I wasn't doing anything, and I certainly wasn't writing. So, but then I would look back when I was healthier and write about some of the really dark times in my life. And I hope everybody knows that that's what's happening. It's not, you're not writing your best work from the mental hospital. You're writing your best work in retrospect and hopefully normalizing it. But yeah, I just think being more open about like the range of mental health is important.
Love that. Thank you. Phoebe, at MusicCares, we've seen the need for assistance with mental health resources increase dramatically. In fact, 149% over the last 5 years. Being on the front lines of this pandemic is incredibly sad, seeing the statistics that have come out over the last 2 years that roughly 70% of musicians report struggling with a mental illness like depression or anxiety, and most did not even receive help. What are your thoughts about this? And do you think the industry is doing enough to destigmatize mental health challenges and create spaces to support those that struggle?
It's hard to know what the industry is doing as a whole. I can say with the people that I choose to surround myself with, I feel like we all do a lot of work to destigmatize mental health issues. But yeah, I can only speak personally. And I think everybody in my team and my label, they've all been so supportive. Like I haven't really hit a brick wall of people like I used to when I was a kid. Like I hilariously had somebody tell me at a record label that I should tweet more emo stuff. Like I should tweet sadder stuff, basically like commodify it. And yeah, I feel like people just have like a more serious tone and it's not just like a brand anymore. I feel like people take it really seriously, especially with the amount of death and destruction and everything that's happened this year and people relapsing. I just think, it makes total sense why all that happened, but also it's making people face the fact that even if you've been okay for a while, you could turn a corner and not be, if there's a global pandemic and your parents get sick or somebody dies, it could just be the kicker. And I think that's been, at least for me, a really nice lesson. Like I have this weird thing where I want people to be okay. Like someone decides to get sober and I'm like, okay, they're sober forever. So I think that this year, at least within my friend group and music in my world, it's been nice to normalize not being okay all the time. And that's, I don't know. It's been very interesting.
I love that you talk about normalizing that. And I happen to know your manager and you have such a great team around you that I think is needed more in this industry, right? We need these labels, and whether it was forced or it's a hot topic or whatever, it's good that the message is getting out and finally people are recognizing that, we need to not kind of hide people behind these things, but continue to just really engage and ask how can we help? If we're your agent or your manager or your label, how can we help so that we create longevity with you?
Exactly.
So That's great. As a therapist working in private practice and through my work with MusicCares with people in the industry, I know that the stressors can be especially intense. The stakes are high, it's competitive, there's intense focus on appearance and constant scrutiny and rejection. As an artist and someone who develops other artists, what do you see as the biggest challenges for artists right now, and how can we help address it as a whole?
I think the stress to be great at everything, to come across as normal and cool on the internet while also working really hard on your music, and people are outputting a lot more music than previous years. Like everybody wants to hear about somebody who made a whole record in their basement, and then now they're like on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter. And I think just knowing that you can take whatever piece you want, if you do see somebody who's great at all that stuff, awesome, but you don't have to be like that. You can pick one, you can pick none. I have tons of friends who aren't on the internet and don't engage, and they actually kind of seem to be doing better in general. And whether or not you can handle like constantly being perceived, you will be perceived for your music, hopefully, but you don't have to give people everything.
We know that it's important to understand that depression and anxiety or any other mental health challenge can look different in each person. It's important to not try and diagnose anyone, but to rather be that bridge to help someone and connect them with professional assistance. And it's amazing how so many people don't know what to do or to say in those times, in those struggling times, whether it's for yourself or your friend or a family member. So tell us a little bit how you've helped others or yourself during these times, and how do you know your own threshold of when it's time to take time out or reach out or call a therapist?
I think that's truly what it is. It's just call your therapist or call somebody professional, because you don't know what to do. You will blame yourself for the outcome, and a lot of emotionally abusive people will make you the boss of them. So they'll put themselves at risk and say, fix it. And having the boundaries, and also it's just smarter to call somebody, I think has been a really important lesson, whether it's an interventionist or a therapist or something. Like, figure it out. Like, you are not a professional 1,000%, like whoever we're talking to. Like, it's just, they're also kind of, there's like people all the time say, don't tell anybody, or you betrayed me, or whatever. That's all bullshit. Like, you're going to really regret it if something bad happens. And you want to know that you did everything that you can. So I'd just say ask for help.
I love that. And that's so important, versus sitting on the sideline and just waiting to see if they get the help. So thank you. We know that COVID has had a tremendous impact on the industry, with so many people being out of work and being in isolation. People are struggling not only with the financial insecurities, mental health and addiction challenges, but also questioning their identity and role in the industry. In the beginning, it was almost a welcome break. Some were saying, from constantly on tour and away from their homes and friends and family, some were able to reconnect in a way that they hadn't before, and they loved it. But as time went on and the industry remained shut down, people began to struggle and search for the next steps, and even pivot industries to make ends meet. But now, with some tours and venues and festivals slated to reopen in late summer and early fall, some people are apprehensive about what that may look like and question if they really want to go back and do it like they did before. And some are thinking maybe it needs to be more strategic, because they realize that balance of work and home and personal was more important. What were your thoughts about that, and how did COVID affect your view on touring?
I think it happened before COVID, but I hope people came to this conclusion as well, that like, if you think about like rock star tropes, the day before a tour, the whole tour gets canceled so someone can go to rehab, or someone was too fucked up to play and whatever, like that stuff's all been romanticized. And I think you can get ahead of that. For one, you can just be the one who cancels something. It's not that big of a deal. It's just not that big of a deal. Like, everybody successful has had a meltdown and canceled something. And you can have the foresight to say, I can't go out for that long. Or the night before your show, you can be like, you know what? Like, I'm too sick. I'm not going to play. Everything's going to be fine. Like, I think the worst thing I got in my like music education was like, just show up and play, like no matter what, like just white knuckle it through the show. And for me, I don't struggle with addiction. I definitely struggle with mental health, but for me, I had a lot of mental health that would manifest as physical health. Like I'd have such a bad panic attack that would turn into a sinus infection, or I'd lose my voice. And then being able to look back and say, why did I take, crazy medication to be able to play that random show when I could have just canceled it and then I could have finished the whole tour and been healthy? Like, just cancel it. It's not that big of a deal. It's just not that big of a deal. Nobody cares. You're fine. Sometimes tabloids, like I remember Sky Ferreira a couple years ago posting some tabloid articles about her canceling a tour next to men's canceled tours. And the men who canceled tours, it was like, whoever cancels tour for health reasons. And hers was in quotes, for health reasons. And she was like, what the fuck? That's such... So even her being able to know in your heart that that's messed up is awesome. And I hope the industry changes and that never happens again. But I feel like a big piece of advice about tour is just like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money you're going to lose. It doesn't matter how embarrassed you're going to be. It's going to be worse if you push through a show you can't do.
At what point did you get to that? Because you have a lot of young artists that are so afraid to tell their manager or their label, no, I need a break, and then what happens? They ultimately have a break, right? Yeah. But and it ends up costing more in the middle of a tour or whatever the label people were afraid of in the first place. But what was it for you that made you stop and say, no, I'm going to cancel?
I think, the lesson somewhere along the way, probably right after my first record, of realizing that, if you push through the show before, there's going to inevitably there's like a bigger show at the end of tour. It was costing me a lot, or I would show up and play and it would be bad. And then I just forever have, a late night performance or something, your voice breaks really hard and you're like, I should have not done that because they spent all this money. I spent all this money and then now this thing that lives forever on the internet is bad. My other piece of advice, which is hard, which is a very privileged thing to say because everybody cuts corners, but like, just pay for the extra day overseas. Have a day to heal. Don't let the label or whoever gaslight you into saying that's too expensive. Like, if you feel like you're not getting something that's going to help you have the best show, demand it. Again, that's a super privileged place to say that because for a really long time I felt like I couldn't do that. And I don't know if I could. I don't know what kind of reaction I would have gotten, but like, if you're on the cusp of getting a bus, like get the bus. If you're on the cusp of if you're trying to decide if you want 3 layovers or one, like just take care of your body and yourself. And especially if you feel like the label has the money and they're not supporting you, just tell them like, hey, you're already investing so much to send me to this one show or to have me do late night. Like, don't you want it to be good?
That's great advice. And, those comments about getting that extra day, because sleep is so important, right? Just on tour alone, just for your physical and mental health. So, you named a few things about touring. What about self-care? What are some self-care tips? Like, do you have a daily routine that you do? We have a lot of young music industry people watching, and I think, what would you say to them about their self-care routines that maybe help you a lot?
I write a lot on walks as well, but I think if I don't get a walk in on a day, I feel very bad. I do yoga. All this stuff seems negligible, but it's really, when I stop doing it, I really notice. Breath work and yoga helps me with my voice and helps sustain my voice and my body. And I love tour because you can just take like a random 10-mile walk. You're like, oh, I want to go to this big statue, or I want to do whatever. And it just, every day you're in a new place, and it's a beautiful opportunity to do stuff like that. And then when you're home, like, having a consistent walk or doing stuff that you can't normally do, like the same walk every day, for me, that's my favorite thing. I'm not on any medications, which again is very lucky. But I take a walk and drink my coffee at the same time every day, and it's really, like, I swear, it changed me from somebody who had to sleep for 14 hours and still felt like they couldn't get out of bed into somebody who's excited to wake up in the morning, and feel well rested after like 8 hours of sleep. So, and being insistent about 8 hours. Like, I definitely went on tours early where it was like, okay, we're home at 2 a.m. and to catch our flight, you have to wake up at 6, and just tell the tour manager and your label and your manager to fuck off. That's not, tell them to fuck off. That's no fucking way. Like, do you want me to lose my voice for the New York show, which is the last show? Like, but also, that being said, have compassion for your crew, because sometimes people, or your agent will put you on impossible routing, and just to have somebody look at it before you go out and say, you realize this is a red eye or whatever. It's nice to be prepared.
So important. And I love that you mentioned the crew too, because I think oftentimes people forget about them and what all goes into it before the stage. Oh my gosh,
if I get 2 hours of sleep, my sound guy gets a half hour of sleep.
Right? And
I'd be late everywhere.
Their physical and mental health is so important, or you're not getting up on that stage, right?
Totally.
Awesome. We know COVID has caused many deaths and a long-lasting global economic slowdown, rampant general stress and anxiety. We've all heard that. But as many inspirational social media posts have already said, maybe this virus has a silver lining. It's one question I love to ask everyone. For me, the medical innovation, the global collaboration, and that greater emphasis on the work-life balance are a few that come to mind for me. So I'm going to ask you that. What silver linings did you have to reset or rejuvenate? And are you finding that it has actually helped you find the balance and look at maybe other opportunities in this industry?
Yeah, I think silver lining is a hard one, because I think for me, they were all pretty dark, highlighting wealth inequality and racial inequality in this country and income gaps, and like, it just kind of like blew all the bullshit away. And for people who needed it, we saw mass Black death and mass, we saw what was happening in prisons, because we were like, wait, you can't quarantine in prison? I think everybody who needed to learn that stuff, hopefully did, but also, like, why did we have to? Like, it's been happening since the beginning of time, or at least the beginning of time in this country. So it sucks that people needed this hard of a wake up call, and but I'm glad that I'm having deeper conversations with my mom or people around me about, like, and I also think that people felt, at least some of the people in my life have kind of like kicked up their game as far as activism or charity work, and like conversations around that have been growing and been more productive. Like, I feel like I used to feel kind of stymied when I'd look at like global suffering. And now I think something I'd recommend that I learned this year is just like focus on your community. You can make a difference. MusicCares paid for my drummer's rent for a year when he broke his leg and couldn't work anymore. Like, focus on charities that you see working in your life. Because it'll help your community. I do a lot with Downtown Women's Center, and it's really cool to just watch what you're doing make a real difference. And I feel like that was the silver lining of this year, is just being like, oh, I can actually change stuff.
And that changing is kind of giving you a purpose in outside of your music. I know that people love. That's why a lot of people love getting into the charity work. So, in fact, one of the things that people come to us and, once they've received some help with mental health issues or addiction issues, it's kind of directing them in those paths of one of the beautiful questions is, how do I give back? So there are a lot of young students of music watching today and certainly look up to you. And they would love to hear from the artists that make work that drive us and inspire us. What is one piece of advice you wished you personally would have been given as a young artist starting out that you can give them today?
Tell the truth. I mean that in art, but also in life. I think that the most interesting thing about you is you and your experience. So when I started writing songs, it was more like I really wanted to write songs and I tried to make it sound like other people's songs. And then, people started liking me more when I started telling the truth about my life and not only is it just more fun, but also you meet people who agree with you no matter what. So if you make up, a persona for stage, and that's fun too, but it's not really my thing. But like if you make up like a scenario or something, you might actually resonate with someone who that actually happened to, and you should just be prepared for that. But I find it more fun to talk about my actual life so that people find me who've had shared experience, and that's just so fun. And you'll believe yourself more, and it will get rid of imposter syndrome. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is don't take shit from old men, honestly. Like they're going to tell you that they produced someone 10 years ago who's super famous, and your question should be like, well, what are you trying to get out of me? Like they are not doing you a favor. You are doing them a favor. You're making them relevant. You obviously be nice, but if someone talks down to you, just like walk away. Find people who really believe in what you're doing.
Great advice. Thank you so much. And let's tell everyone who's in your lap.
Oh, yeah. This is the snoring baby in my lap. I'm going to hold her away from my dress so you can see her face. Yeah, wait. There we go.
Oh, Maxine?
Yeah, she's going to make some sounds.
Does she go on tour? Does she go on tour with you?
Well, she's pretty new, so she hasn't yet, but I'm sure she will.
Oh, how old is she?
She's 6 months.
Oh, so sweet. She was a COVID baby.
Yeah, I've been looking for like 2 years for a shelter pug puppy, but they're very rare, so this is my first.
Oh, love it. Good for you. You're rescuing too. Phoebe, this was really great. And again, thank you so much for your time today. I wish you continued success and joy. Now let's take some questions from our Grammy U members who were so thrilled about this talk and submitted their own personal questions for you.
Hi Phoebe, my question is, how has music helped you cope with different experiences throughout your life?
How has music helped me cope? Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think hearing your experiences reflected by someone you look up to is just really, really validating. Like my mom's always like, what the fuck? Why do you listen to such dark music? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to feel like the darkest person on the planet. I want to look for music in my life that represents what I'm going through. But then on the flip side of that, I love music that kind of hypes you up and gets you out of a mood as well. Like I really love Muna. I feel like if I'm in a bad mood and I put Muna on, I can't stay mad.
Hey Phoebe, my question to you is, if you were to teach a class to a group of aspiring artists on how to draw from our experiences dealing with mental health issues and putting them into our music, what would be some of the most important points that you would want to hit?
I think I have a good one for this because I read it in a Phoebe Waller-Bridge interview. And I feel the same way, where when you think to yourself, am I allowed to say that? The answer is yes. Say it. It's funny or dark or fun. I feel like I never want to hear the word turpentine in the song again, or I honestly kind of don't want to hear about anybody smoking a cigarette ever again. Like, say the thing that's specific to you, and I guarantee you people will love it. And if you smoke cigarettes, go for it. Put it in there. If it's the truth, I feel like it'll come across as genuine. But yeah, anytime, like I have a lyric about a hypnotherapist and I was like, is that stupid or too weird? And luckily I had a friend say, no, it's awesome. You should definitely put that in there. And now I do that all the time. I love it.
Hey Phoebe, Phoebes. I don't know if I can call you that, but my name is Arissa. You can call me IJ if you want. And I just had a question regarding kind of the collabs that you've done. I know you've worked closely with Lucy and with Julian during Boy Genius, and even done some projects with Maggie with your cover of Iris and some other people that you've recorded with. And I was just wondering how they have helped you navigate kind of the feelings and the things that you sing about in your music. Did they help you kind of grow in that vulnerability as an artist, or how did you guys kind of relate to each other while composing and making music together? I would love to get some insight on your friendships with them and how they've helped you become a better musician and a better person all around.
Good question. Yeah, I think it's the same thing that I always talk about, which is just shared experience. I think, Maggie and Lucy and Julian are as close to me as I can get in the industry. I feel like we have very, very similar experiences and even similar music and writing style. So just, even getting booked on the same festivals and stuff and being like, how much are you getting paid? How much are you getting paid? Real life practical stuff really makes a difference, just having friends who have the same job. But then on a way deeper level, being able to resonate with each other's darkest lyrics, I think is what makes us so close. Not having to really explain yourself to somebody and somebody hearing a really dark lyric and knowing exactly what it means. And then, the best type of competitive, like when I hear Lucy's new single, Hot and Heavy, when I hear that, I just, I'm so jealous. I'm like, how did she say that thing that is exactly what I think? So having people around you to challenge you by being great is great.
Hello, Phoebe. This is Jose from the New York chapter. I've heard many songwriters say that whenever they write songs or lyrics about personal trauma, they feel that they relieve those memories during the writing process. I'm wondering if this happens to you as well, and if so, how do you deal with it?
Great question. Also, I think about it all the time. I have a really big dissociation problem and a repressed memory problem. So weirdly, with me, I will finish a whole song without really realizing that I'm telling the truth. So I think like a part of my brain can clock that I'm telling a story that's happened, but while I'm I think that writing actually helps me be more in my body and have more memories. Every therapist will tell you to journal and write things down. And so songwriting is definitely that for me. And then I take so long to write. So maybe like the third time I'm playing it or singing it for someone, I will be reliving it and it's very emotional, but usually I'm not recording it or anything till like months and months later. And then it kind of gives me time to like process weirdly, to like, have a friend say, oh, that happened to me, or my dad was just like that or something. It's very great for coping. My dog is having a hard time, but it's fine.
Hi Phoebe, I'm a big fan of your music, and I just want to ask, was being vulnerable in your music always something that you were comfortable with? And if not, what did you do to work through that uncomfortable spot and get out of your comfort zone with your music?
I do still find it really hard to be vulnerable in music, but I think that the best thing you can do is just pretend like you're never going to show anybody, because you might not, I would be writing a line and say, oh no, it's going to hurt that person's feelings, or I don't have to talk to my mom about when that happened or something. Just write it. And if it's good enough, I feel like your ego will make you put it out, and show people. And have I have like a very core group of friends, and then like slightly removed and then slightly removed. And I feel like I show the core group first and then I branch out, and it helps a lot with comfortability. But I don't think you should edit yourself as you go. I think you should edit yourself after if necessary. And honestly, I never have. If there's some drama that I'm writing about at the time, usually by the time I'm supposed to put it out or play it, it's far gone. Or I'm over it and I don't care if I piss somebody off. So yeah, just go for it. it's just yours.
Hi, Phoebe. My name is Lauren. A question I have for you is, obviously some of your songs do cover some darker subject matter related to you and your life. And when you're touring, obviously you have to play those songs every night or frequently while touring. So a question that I have is, one, is it difficult for you to relive certain memories while performing on tour frequently? And if so, what are some strategies you have to take care of yourself by reliving those memories?
This is like a twice removed Leonard Cohen quote, so who knows if he even said it. Just my friend told me that he did, but about how if you're not living the experience of your song while you're singing, then you're ripping the audience off. And I've got to learn how to live while I'm singing. Sometimes I do, actually, and it's way more fun. Even if it's really dark, it is sort of like reprocessing, like EMDR, if you know what that is. It's kind of like the EMDR of shows. Getting applause and having people sing your traumatic experience is kind of its own form of reprocessing and therapy. So, yeah, I don't know. Having an audience full of people who want to hear about it is great to me. And I don't have a lot of coping mechanisms other than, like I said, taking a really, 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 really long walk, and listening to somebody else's music and dancing with your friends to the opener. Like, yeah.
As a musician, have you had moments where you felt completely burnt out to the point where you couldn't play or write anything? And if so, how did you get past that?
Honestly, just allow yourself to be burnt out. I went through like a big writing phase like a couple weeks ago, but before that I hadn't written for like 6 months, and then I haven't written since. And try. Like, I'm not saying don't try, but if your brain and your body are telling you that you can't, sometimes you just need to go clean a drawer and come back and do it, and just wait for it to hit again. But yeah, there have definitely been times on tour where I'm like, how am I going to do this? But the show is always the fun part, I'm like, how am I going to get on this flight? And luckily you're just like, oh, because I'm going to play a show later and it's going to be fun. So yeah, even when you're burned out, I feel like you don't get paid or you don't make music so that you can travel for 23 hours. You make it for the 1 hour that you get to play for people.
Hi, my name is James. My question for Phoebe was, what are some ways that we can help to destigmatize mental health through music? And is this something that you focus on in your own approach to your work or your songwriting?
Yeah, I think tell the truth, I think knowing, for me, the thing that's been really helpful that people are normalizing more is just the spectrum. Whether it's the sexuality spectrum, I think for a long time I didn't really talk about stuff because I felt like I wasn't gay enough or I wasn't straight enough. And same goes with mental health. It's like, well, I don't have it that bad. I don't get to talk about depression, but I think knowing that there are other people in the middle of the scale and you don't have to be like throwing tantrums every night to have a mental health issue, has been so helpful. So if you feel like you don't deserve to take up the space, then there's somebody who looks up to you who will also feel like they don't deserve to take up space because they have the same thing as you. And yeah, I don't know, representation. Just talk about it. It's great. And then you meet people like you. It's awesome.
Hi, Phoebe. I was wondering, did you find the music scene to be accepting of your identity as an LGBTQ plus woman? What was your experience in finding confidence and self-acceptance? I'm going to say representation again, but I think that looking up to people like me was the most important. And like, I don't know, just seeing Katie Lang on stage. Like, I watched a video when I was a kid and I was just like, oh, like that's possible. And then I had a pompadour all of high school. Like, having more people to copy. So more people who are out, more people who are open. But also, you don't owe anybody anything. You don't have to be out. You can just be yourself, and people can, resonate with you no matter what you identify as. But I think the industry has been accepting for sure. Again, I'm, a white woman and I'm very straight passing sometimes. So I think it's easy for the industry to be accepting of me, weirdly. And
and people kind of want to pat themselves on the back sometimes for representation when it's me, like, you know, a blonde in her 20s, you know, like, I don't know. I think more representation is really important. Yeah, I think that's on the industry. I think that the industry needs to be more representative of more types of people.
Phoebe, what's next for you now that you are coming off of an amazing record and hoping to, I think, tour in the fall? What's next for you, and what's big picture for you?
You know, who knows? That's my favorite thing about right now, is that who knows? It's weird to do such a prolonged album campaign, so mostly I'm very excited for tour, but also I'm excited to make more stuff so that I'm not touring Punisher forever. But yeah, can't wait to see people. That's just like what's keeping me going right now.
Love that. I think all of us feel the same way, and we can't wait to see you live.
Totally, I'm so excited. Thank you, students, and GRAMMY U and MusiCares. I had such a great time. This was so fun and nice and open. If you or anybody you know needs help, go to musiccares.org. And then when you're doing better, donate and do stuff. I have done both, so go for it. But yeah, so fun. Thank you so much.